Introduction: shattering illusions about relationships, desire, and power. Imagine, for a moment, being confronted with a startling revelation that everything you've ever believed about relationships, desire, and power is only a fragment of the full picture. What if the truths you've held dear, shaped by family teachings, cultural narratives, media portrayals, and personal experiences, were merely surface-level understandings, masking a profound, hidden layer beneath? This layer, buried deep under centuries of societal conditioning, religious doctrines, philosophical traditions, and evolutionary instincts, remains invisible to most people throughout their entire lives. It's a realm so obscure that even those who sense its presence often dismiss it as intuition or coincidence, never daring to excavate it fully. Now, pause and contemplate this. What if one of history's greatest thinkers, Socrates himself, the barefoot wanderer of ancient Athens, the relentless questioner who challenged kings and commoners alike, held the key to unlocking this concealed aspect of human nature, particularly as it relates to women? Socrates, whose ideas have echoed through millennia, influencing everything from ethics to epistemology, might have glimpsed a side of femininity that society has, for thousands of years, been too terrified to openly acknowledge or confront. This isn't merely another abstract philosophical debate or a casual intellectual exercise. It's an exploration with potential to dismantle the very foundations of your worldview, forcing you to rebuild from the ground up with newfound clarity and depth. At the heart of this journey lies one of the most subversive and provocative questions ever posed in the annals of human thought. What do women truly desire? And, intertwined with that, what role does power play in their often enigmatic silence? In this extended rewrite, we're not just skimming the surface. We're plunging into depths that many fear to tread, some outright deny exist, and only a handful of brave souls have the courage to fully explore. I assure you, by the time we reach the conclusion of this expansive discussion, after weaving through historical anecdotes, psychological insights, mythological analogies, and contemporary reflections, you'll perceive the world, your relationships, and even your own inner self through a lens so pristinely clear that returning to your previous state of ignorance will feel utterly impossible. And yes, the final revelation we'll uncover is the most potent of all, a truth that has the power to redefine not just how you interact with others, but how you navigate your entire existence. So, if you're ready to face realities that the majority of people actively avoid, if you're prepared to unearth ancient wisdom that's been hidden in plain sight amidst the noise of modern life, commit to staying with me until the very end. Because what you're about to encounter in these pages may very well alter the trajectory of your life in ways you can't yet imagine. Before we delve deeper into this intellectual odyssey, I encourage you to engage actively. Subscribe to channels or newsletters that foster such profound discussions, like this content if it resonates, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights, questions, and personal stories are the lifeblood that fuels meaningful conversations, sparking chains of enlightenment that ripple outward. If this material awakens something dormant within you, a spark of curiosity, a twinge of discomfort, or a flood of recognition, don't hesitate to share it with others. We're only at the beginning of this expansive rewrite, and trust me when I say the revelations that lie ahead are far from what you might anticipate. They challenge conventions, upend assumptions, and invite a level of self-examination that few undertake. Returning to Socrates, the man behind the myth. Now, let's circle back to Socrates, the enigmatic figure who serves as our guiding light in this exploration. Socrates, born around 470 BC in Athens, never committed a single word of parchment or stone. He authored no books, no treatises, no scrolls that survive to this day. Yet, his intellectual legacy forms the very soul of Western philosophy, influencing thinkers from Plato to Nietzsche, from Kant to contemporary existentialists. He roamed the bustling streets of Athens, barefoot, unassuming, and audaciously bold, engaging in dialogues that pierced the veil of complacency. He questioned politicians on the nature of justice, poets on the essence of beauty, and everyday citizens on the meaning of virtue, often leaving them bewildered and introspective. But amid his vast inquiries, one subject stood out as particularly elusive and potentially more dangerous than debates on politics, theology, or metaphysics: the intricate nature of women, their desires, and the subtle influence they wield, often invisibly, like a current beneath the ocean's surface. Socrates was no stranger to profound power that women possessed. His own wife, Xantippe, was famously described by ancient sources as sharp-tongued, assertive, and unyielding, a woman who challenged the great philosopher at every turn. Historians and biographers, from Xenophon to later Roman writers, painted her as difficult or even shrewish, a foil to Socrates' calm demeanor. But let's pause and reflect deeply on this. Why would a mind as brilliant and truth-seeking as Socrates choose to spend his life with someone like Xantippe unless there was a profound lesson embedded in that union? The truth, as we can infer from the fragment of his life that has survived through Plato's dialogues and other accounts, is that Socrates perceived something in women that few in his era, or ours, dared acknowledge openly. Beneath the rigid structures of Athenian society, women held a form of power that transcended the visible realms of politics, warfare, or commerce. This power was emotional, psychological, and social, an influence that reshaped individuals, families, and even entire communities without ever needing to be proclaimed from the rooftops. It was a kind of authority that operated in the shadows, molding minds and hearts through subtlety rather than force. To understand this better, consider the paradox at the heart of ancient Athenian life. In the public sphere, the agora, the assembly, the courts, women were expected to embody silence, modesty, and obedience. They were largely excluded from formal education, voting, and property ownership, relegated to the domestic realm under the guardianship of fathers, husbands, or sons. Yet, in the private sphere, the oikos household, the intimate spaces of family life, the nurturing of children who will become future citizens, soldiers, and leaders, women exercised a different kind of dominion. This was soft power, an unspoken authority that didn't demand overt recognition, but commanded outcomes nonetheless. Mothers shaped the moral fiber of sons who would one day lead armies. Wives influenced husbands' decisions through counsel whispered in the quiet hours. Priestesses like Diotima, whom we'll discuss later, imparted wisdom that echoed in philosophical halls. What if this dynamic, this hidden feminine influence, is not a relic of antiquity, but very much alive and thriving in our modern world? In today's societies, whether in boardrooms, bedrooms, or social media feeds, women often navigate similar dualities. They may project poise and compliance in professional settings, while wielding profound emotional leverage in personal relationships. This power steers decisions, influences identities, and shapes narratives, all while remaining largely unacknowledged. It's the colleague who subtly redirects a meeting's direction through empathy, the partner who intuitively senses unspoken needs and fulfills them, or the mother whose quiet guidance forges a child's path to success. Expanding on this, let's draw from historical context to enrich our understanding. In ancient Greece, the ideal of the good woman was epitomized by figures like Penelope in Homer's Odyssey, patient, faithful, and clever in her silence. Yet, even Penelope's silence was a strategy. She wove and unwove her shroud to delay suitors, demonstrating cunning intelligence. Socrates, living in a time when such myths were cultural bedrock, would have recognized this as evidence of feminine agency. Fast forward to the Renaissance, where thinkers like Machiavelli discuss power in terms of visible force versus subtle manipulation, echoing Socratic insights. In The Prince, Machiavelli notes that fortune, often personified as female, must be mastered, but Socrates might argue that true mastery comes from understanding, not conquest. In contemporary terms, this manifests in phenomena like emotional labor, a concept popularized by sociologist Arlie Hochschild in the 1980s. Women often perform unseen work, managing emotions, mediating conflicts, nurturing relationships that sustain social structures. This labor is power in disguise, influencing outcomes without fanfare. Consider a modern example. In a corporate environment, a female executive might use relational skills to build alliances, achieving promotions not through aggressive tactics but through network influence. Men, trained in direct competition, might overlook this, attributing success to luck or favoritism. But Socrates would urge us to question, what assumptions blind us to this power? The unconscious feminine, Jung's echo of Socratic wisdom. Centuries after Socrates' death by hemlock in 399 BCE, the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung, 1875 to 1961, will articulate concepts that strikingly resonate with these Socratic observations. Jung, a pioneer in analytical psychology and a former collaborator with Sigmund Freud, introduced the idea of the anima, the unconscious feminine aspect residing within every man's psyche. This anima is not a literal woman, but an archetypal force, a blend of emotions, intuitions, and creative energies that seduces, inspires, confuses, and ultimately completes the individual. Jung described it in works like Ion and the Archetypes and Collective Unconscious as a bridge to the soul, drawing from myths, dreams, and cultural symbols. But here's a critical twist that aligns with Socratic probing. If a man remains unaware of his anima, if he fails to integrate this inner feminine through self-reflection, therapy, or life experiences, it doesn't vanish into oblivion. Instead, it exerts control from the shadows, projecting itself onto external women and distorting relationships. A man might idealize a partner as his muse, only to resent her when she doesn't fulfill his unconscious expectations. This leads to cycles of infatuation, disillusionment, and repetition, much like the tragic heroes in Greek dramas who are undone by their unexamined flaws. Now, ask yourself this probing question in the spirit of Socrates' method. What happens when this internal feminine force collides with the real women in our lives? Are we genuinely interacting with flesh and blood individuals, complete with their own histories, desires, and complexities? Or are we merely dancing with projections, shadow puppets cast by our unresolved psyches? Are we aware of the true influence women hold, or are we unwittingly manipulated by strings we refuse to see or acknowledge? Most men, Jung observed, never pose these questions to themselves. They navigate life on autopilot, trapped in repetitive patterns of attraction, confusion, resentment, and unfulfilled longing. This entrapment isn't due to malice or weakness, but to a lack of self-inquiry, the very thing Socrates championed. In Plato's Apology, Socrates declares, "The unexamined life is not worth living," a statement that applies profoundly to relationships. Without examination, men project their anima onto women, seeing them as saviors, temptresses, or enigmas rather than equals. To illustrate, let's expand with a modern analogy. Think of social media dating apps like Tinder or Bumble, where profiles are curated illusions. A man swipes right on a woman who embodies his ideal, perhaps echoing a nurturing mother figure from childhood or a glamorous celebrity archetype. Initial dates spark excitement, but as reality intrudes, her quirks, her independence, the projection shatters, leading to ghosting or conflict. Jung would say this is the anima at work, unintegrated and destructive. Socrates might counter with a dialogue. What do you truly seek in this woman? Is it her essence, or a mirror for your unmet needs? Philosopher Alain de Botton, in his book The Course of Love and essays like On Love, echoes this by stating, "We fall in love not with those who are right for us, but with those who feel familiar." This familiarity often stems from childhood patterns, perhaps a distant parent or an overbearing sibling, driving us toward partners who unconsciously recreate those dynamics. De Botton, drawing from psychoanalytic traditions, argues that love is a skill, not a feeling, requiring education in emotional intelligence. Applying Socratic examination here means questioning. What projections do I cast? What fears do I avoid? What truths about myself do I evade through romance? Imagine a society where such questions are systematically suppressed. From boyhood, men are taught to conquer, through sports, careers, or conquests, to provide materially, and pursue relentlessly, but rarely to understand the depths of feminine psychology. In such a world, women are reduced to symbols, trophies of success, mysteries to unravel, or threats to ego. This reduction isn't deliberate oppression, but a cultural blind spot, perpetuated by media portrayals in films like American Psycho, where women are objectified, or romantic comedies that prioritize grand gestures over genuine connection. Women, in turn, learn across generations to navigate this blindness, harnessing it not out of malice but for survival and efficacy. This wisdom isn't always codified in books or laws. It's transmitted intuitively, through mothers teaching daughters resilience, through shared stories of heartbreak and triumph, through the subtle art of emotional navigation. It's felt in the gut, passed in whispers during late-night conversations, embodied in the quiet strength of grandmothers who endured wars or hardships. Silence, in this context, is far from absence. It's a sophisticated strategy. French existentialist Simone de Beauvoir, in her seminal work The Second Sex, 1949, famously declared, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman." This becoming occurs within patriarchal structures that reward conformity and penalize overt confrontation. Women adapt by mastering indirect influence, using empathy to guide, intuition to predict, and restraint to maintain harmony. De Beauvoir argues this is a response to being defined as the other in a male-centric world, where direct power is denied, so alternative paths are forged. Here's an uncomfortable truth that ties back to our theme. Many women might not want discussions like this video to gain widespread attention, not because it maliciously exposes them, but because it illuminates a dynamic that has, for centuries, operated in their favor through subtlety. The mystique surrounding feminine desire, the confusion it engenders in men, the intricate dance of pursuit and retreat, maintains a balance. If that veil is lifted through widespread awareness, the power dynamic shifts irrevocably. Name power transforms. What was once implicit becomes explicit, potentially disrupting equilibria built on unspoken rules. But is this manipulation or merely adaptation? To frame it biologically, think of it as nature's mirror. Just as animals evolved camouflage, chameleons changing color, octopuses mimicking environments, to survive predators or catch prey, humans develop social roles and strategies. Not all are overt or verbal. Some are archetypal, etched into our collective unconscious, as Jung described, or mythic, as in the stories of goddesses like Athena, wisdom through strategy, or Aphrodite, love through allure. Socrates understood that myths weren't mere entertainment. They were repositories of psychological truth. In Greek mythology, figures like Circe, who transforms men into beasts through enchantment, or the sirens, whose song lures sailors to doom, symbolize the transformative power of the feminine. These tales warn of dangers, but also teach respect for that power. In our rewrite, this isn't about assigning blame or accusations to women or men. It's about collective awakening. If we aspire to deeper relationships, ones built on authenticity, mutual growth, and profound connection, we must cease treating women as enigmas to decipher or ideals to pedestalize. Instead, view them as multifaceted beings navigating a world that often mutes their voices, demanding they speak in codes. To achieve this, we must heed Socrates' imperative. Know thyself, but expand it. What if knowing yourself entails recognizing how much of your thoughts, feelings, and desires have been subtly shaped by the feminine influences you've encountered, often without realizing? From maternal nurturing in infancy to romantic entanglements in adulthood, these forces mold us. And if I told you we're only beginning to scratch the surface of this vast topic, in the sections ahead, we'll dive even deeper, exploring layers of suppressed truths, buried instincts, and emotional currents that defy easy articulation. Delving deeper, the delicate power of exploration. What renders this exploration so delicate, yet simultaneously so empowering, is that we're not merely dealing with empirical facts or verifiable data. We're grappling with centuries of suppressed truths, ideas buried under layers of cultural taboo, religious dogma, and social norms. These include instincts honed by evolution, emotional undercurrents that surge like hidden rivers, and psychological patterns that rarely find expression in everyday language. That's why men frequently sense that something is off in their relationships, a vague unease, an inexplicable tension, but struggle to pinpoint or name it. It's not that women are deliberately concealing secrets. It's that society has never equipped us with the tools or vocabulary to perceive the invisible architecture of emotional power. Socrates, in his relentless dialogues as recorded by Plato in works like The Republic or Phaedo, was unyielding in his pursuit of essence over illusion. He rejected superficial answers, probing until the bedrock of truth was exposed, raw and unsettling. If he were alive in our era of smartphones and self-help books, he wouldn't pose the question, what do women want? In the simplistic way many self-proclaimed experts do, reducing it to lists of material needs or romantic gestures. Instead, he'd challenge, what assumptions are you harboring about women that obscure the truth? How do your preconceptions blind you to their reality? This line of inquiry has the potential to shake your core beliefs to their foundations. It compels you to confront that many of the scripts governing your life, dating protocols, notions of masculinity, definitions of success, are not self-chosen but inherited. They're passed down from media portrayals. Think Hollywood's alpha male heroes, cultural expectations to provide a role, and flawed role models, perhaps a father who prioritized work over emotional presence. These scripts glorify the man who conquers attention, dominates conversations, and performs prowess, but they say precious little about the man who listens intently, reflects profoundly, and perceives beyond surface appearances. But what transpires when you begin to truly see? You come to realize that feminine power isn't a deceptive trick or manipulative ploy. It's an energy, subtle, fluid, intuitive, and frequently underestimated, yet profoundly impactful. This energy manifests in myriad ways. A single glance that can bolster or shatter a man's confidence, a moment of silence that conveys more than a torrent of words, an empathetic touch that heals wounds unspoken. Feminine power doesn't always announce itself with a roar. Often it whispers, and those whispers have the capacity to shape destinies, redirect paths, and inspire transformations. To expand this idea, let's draw from psychologist Eric Fromm, a neo-Freudian thinker influenced by Jung, who in books like The Art of Loving, 1956, and Man for Himself, 1947, described the feminine psyche as embodying the archetype of the Great Mother. This isn't a literal maternal figure, but a symbolic representation of life's fundamental dualities: chaos and order, mystery and clarity, nourishment and danger. The Great Mother encompasses creation, birth, growth, and destruction, death, renewal, love, and abandonment. Confronting this archetype means facing the aspects of existence that simultaneously terrify and fascinate us: the unpredictability of emotions, the inevitability of loss, the ecstasy of union. Most men, from argued, are ill-prepared for this confrontation because Western culture emphasizes control, logic, and directness, qualities associated with the masculine archetype. Yet the feminine operates differently. It's symbolic, emotional, layered, and relational. This isn't inferiority or weakness. It's a complementary complexity that holds the key not only to understanding women, but to comprehending our own multifaceted selves. By integrating this complexity, men can achieve what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole. So, returning to our central question, what do women truly desire? Socrates, ever the eluder of definitive answers, would likely refrain from a pat response. Instead, he'd dismantle the question through successive inquiries until it fractured, revealing deeper insights. Perhaps women don't crave a man who claims to have all the answers, a know-it-all who imposes solutions. Maybe they yearn for a man who truly sees them, who listens without judgment, who feels their emotional currents, who respects the intricate dance of mystery without needing to dominate it. Seeing, however, demands risk, the risk of surrendering certainty, of interrogating your own desires, of recognizing how much attraction is rooted in childhood wounds, unmet needs, and societal programming. For instance, consider emotional availability, a concept central to modern relationship psychology. Therapists like John Gottman, in his research on marital stability, highlight how emotional attunement, being present for a partner's feelings, predicts long-term success. Yet many men feel bewildered when a seemingly deep connection turns distant. Instead of reacting with frustration, Socrates would prompt, "Were you truly available or merely performing the role? Did you engage with her essence or project your expectations?" Women, particularly those who've endured emotional trials, heartbreaks, betrayals, or societal pressures, can discern the difference intuitively. They may not articulate it verbally, but they sense inauthenticity like a radar. When they withdraw, it's not necessarily manipulation. It's self-preservation, a boundary to protect their energy. In this perspective, women's silence transforms from a void into a rich language, conveying caution, reflection, or unspoken wisdom. In Plato's Symposium, a dialogue on love, Socrates recounts lessons from Diotima, a priestess and philosopher from Mantinia. Diotima instructs that love isn't about possession or gratification. It's an ascent toward becoming. Love starts with physical attraction but ascends through stages, to the beauty of souls, then laws and institutions and knowledge, and finally to the eternal form of beauty. This ladder of love is a metaphor for transcendence. Climbing requires releasing illusions, abandoning shallow games, and foregoing ego validation. True love isn't security or performance. It's transformative, dissolving barriers to reveal the divine. Here's where the truth edges toward the unbearable for many. This transformation doesn't bolster the ego, it erodes it. Women, whether consciously or subconsciously, often act as catalysts for this dissolution in men. Their presence reflects back hidden aspects, tenderness, fears, yearnings, forcing confrontation, not to fix the man, but because mature femininity invites the collapse of false selves. If a man resists, he doesn't merely reject a woman. He rejects his own growth, perpetuating stagnation. Pause and reflect. Have you ever been inexplicably drawn to someone? A magnetic pull blending desire, fear, admiration, discomfort? That's not coincidence. It's a soul encounter, as spiritual traditions like Sufism or Kabbalah describe. Such individuals enter your life to awaken dormant parts, highlighting what you've avoided. This is why some women might fear this discussion's dissemination. When men awaken, they cease chasing illusions. They no longer view women as saviors, destroyers, prizes, or threats. Instead, they see them as mirrors, reflecting not the woman's identity, but the man's true self beneath societal armor. Socrates was deemed dangerous for this reason, not for providing answers, but for questioning belief foundations. He compelled examination of mental prisons. Who constructed these walls? Why do I remain confined? So, I pose to you, what do you believe about women love your heart? Do these beliefs foster growth or constrain you? Truth isn't always soothing, but it's liberating. In forthcoming sections, we'll delve further into liberation, exploring how misunderstood feminine psychology unlocks man's transformation, transcending patterns, from control to sacred evolution. There's a profound reason why truths like these are often dismissed, ridiculed, or ignored. They threaten the societal structures that keep individuals complacent and asleep. When men grasp the authentic nature of the feminine and their subconscious ties to it, the old games crumble. Manipulation dissipates, confusion evaporates, and in their stead emerges clarity. But clarity demands accountability. You can't scapegoat others for personal wounds, pursue phantoms hoping for fulfillment, or feign ignorance as innocence. In the Greek myth of Psyche and Eros, Psyche is barred from beholding her lover Eros' face, symbolizing blind love. Defying this, she illuminates him with a lamp, awakening him and triggering his flight. Psyche then embarks on arduous trials to reunite, representing the journey from illusion to truth. For men, this mirrors realizing relationships are shaped by projection and fear, not presence. Jung's anima concept elucidates this. Unconscious, it warps perceptions. Integrated, it fosters wholeness, enabling love from abundance, not need. Socrates, Plato, and mystics across cultures, e.g., Rumi's divine love, Taoism's yin-yang balance, knew love as self-realization's path, narrow and seldom trod. Most opt for comfort, convenience, validation, trading depth for safety, which is merely familiar wounds' echo. How often have you lingered in familiarity, mistaking desire for sight, pursuit for healing? This is human, but the era of pretense ends. Upon awakening, men perceive the feminine as a force, emotional, intuitive, present, not controllable, but respectable. Many women test men energetically, through chaos, contradiction, to reveal character, not harm. Can you center amid storm? Hold space in unraveling? See layers to love deeper? This requires emotional sovereignty, depth, presence, unfakeable. Women connected to essence feel everything, seeing through masks, inviting authenticity. Ancient mystery schools, Eleusinian, Orphic, use feminine confrontation for initiation, ego death, soul birth. Modern culture forgets, reducing genders to stereotypes, men performers. Yet psychological stillness, listening, feeling, witnessing without fixing, enables connection. Socrates questioned to free, not impress. Are you reacting or revealing? In challenge, you shut or lean. In inadequacy, attack or reflect. In distance, chase or introspect. Every moment tests from life. Passing through presence yield a realm where love is partnership, intimacy so deep, women oracles of awakening. Games end, confusion ceases, vision redefines identity. The ultimate truth, awakening to presence. Everything prior prepares for this, the truth whispering in bones, liberating or breaking. Socrates' wisdom: know ignorance, master self. For feminine, men avoid fearing vulnerability, exposure, call to presence. Women awaken this, afraid not of women but stirred depths. A seeing woman ignores facades, feeling integrity, testing the summoned soul, not waiting for perfection but presence, unflinching in emotion, steadfast in challenge, real in intimacy, deepest feminine longing, be met, felt, heard, seen as mystery. Paradox: conquering loses self, meaning finds it. World trained performance, chase, accumulate, but soul untouched. Power sans presence empty. Success sans depth hollow. Relation sans truth prisons. Test, control, or connection. Performance or presence. Comfort or truth. Truth burns illusions, rips small self, births embodying love, inspiring being, living philosophy. Such man dangerous, unmanipulable, aware, choosing. Feminine wants mirror reflecting chaos, beauty, rage, passion with presence. Forge in fire, not comfort. Choice: forget, chase illusions, or revolt inwardly. Socrates' revolution, Jung's map, women's unspoken feel. Presence in all, upset partner, afraid child, crumbling dreams, breaking heart. Stand, breathe, choose love. This power none gives / takes. Reclaim it. Truth women hope undiscovered. Changes everything. Seeing, loving, honoring. Not end, beginning. Truth-rooted life. Illusion dead like Socrates. Question: awaken or sleep? Door open. Brave walk through. Conclusion: awakening to the power of presence. This journey, weaving through Socratic inquiry, Jungian insights, and timeless myths, unveils a truth that reshapes how we view relationships, desire, and power. Socrates, the relentless questioner, would not settle for simplistic answers to what do women truly desire? Instead, he'd challenge us to dismantle assumptions blinding us to reality. Women, navigating a world that often mutes their voices, wield a subtle, transformative power, emotional, intuitive, and profound. Their silence is not absence, but a strategic language, shaping destinies through soft influence rather than overt force. The core revelation is that feminine power acts as a mirror, reflecting men's hidden depths, fears, tenderness, yearnings, not to control but to awaken. Many men fear not women but what their presence stirs, the call to shed performance, embrace vulnerability, and embody presence. Women don't seek perfection. They long for men who remain steadfast amid emotional chaos, who listen without fixing, who see them as complex beings, not projections of the anima, Jung's inner feminine force. Unintegrated, the anima distorts relationships with cycles of idealization and resentment. Integrated, it fosters wholeness, enabling love from truth, not need. This awakening is a revolution of presence, not dominance. It's the courage to stand still when a partner storms, to feel deeply when a child fears, to choose love over fear when life fractures. Presence cannot be faked. Women attuned to their essence sense inauthenticity instantly. In Plato's Symposium, Diotima's ladder of love teaches that true connection transcends possession, ascending towards soul-deep intimacy. Women catalyze this ascent, inviting men to dissolve false selves. Resisting this rejects personal evolution. Embracing it births a man who loves authentically, inspiring through being. This truth, often dismissed or feared, threatens societal scripts that glorify conquest and validation. An awakened man, unmanipulable and aware, sees women as mirrors of his true self, not saviors or threats. Women both crave and fear this man, for he reflects their chaos and beauty with unwavering presence. The path is arduous, forged in confronting shadows, wounds, needs, programming, not comfort. Like Psyche illuminating Eros, seeing truth risks loss but leads to transformation. The choice is yours. Return to chasing illusions or ignite an inner revolution. Socrates lived for truth, dying free of illusion. Will you awaken, stepping to the open door to a life rooted in presence, where love is partnership and women are oracles of growth? This truth, subtly hoped undiscovered, changes how you see love and honor, yourself and others. It's not an end but a beginning, a call to live philosophy, to be fully here, now, always.